Ever wish you had like your own personal AI? Like a chat GPT right on your computer so you don't have to wait for anything.
Always there, ready to go.
That's what we're looking at today. This whole world of running these large language models, but like locally on your own machine.
Yeah, it's pretty wild when you think about the possibilities, right?
Yeah.
Having that level of AI power just sitting there on your computer.
So we found this guide and it claims to make this whole setup relatively painless. I'm a little skeptical, I'll be honest, but also super curious.
Rightfully so. Well, the guide starts with something called a llama. And essentially this acts as think of it like the operating system, but specifically for running your AI.
Okay, so if that's the operating system, what's the actual AI we're installing here?
In this case, it's Llama 3, which you can kind of think of as a relative to ChatGPT, though it has its own strengths and, of course, some limitations.
I'm sensing a theme here. Similar to, but not the same, right? Managing those expectations from the get-go. So where do we even begin with all this?
First milestone is getting a llama itself set up on your computer. The good news is they've made it pretty user-friendly. Download an installer, whether you're on Windows, Mac, or Linux, and let it do its thing.
Okay, so far not too intimidating, even for someone like me who's more comfortable with words than lines of code.
Exactly, and once a llama's good to go, then we can bring in the star of the show, which is that Llama 3. The guide gives you a specific command to run in your computer's terminal.
Terminal command? Okay, see, now I'm feeling a little out of my depth. Can you break that down for those of us who might be a little rusty on our Computer Science 101?
Absolutely. Think of the terminal like a direct line of communication to your computer, a way to give it instructions. And the command itself is basically telling a llama to go fetch the Llama 3 model, which, depending on your internet speed, might be a good time to grab a coffee.
Got it. So we're patiently sipping our coffee, waiting for this download. The guide mentions that a llama can actually install other LLMs, not just this specific one. Is that a big deal?
It's huge. It's like saying, hey, you built a bookshelf, but you could put any book on it. It's not limited to just one genre. So down the line, this opens the door for a ton of customization and really lets you explore what's out there.
Okay, I like that visual a lot. But for today, we're sticking with this Llama 3. What comes after the coffee break?
Next stage of our journey involves installing something called Docker, which, to continue our analogy, is like building a really nice, cozy reading nook specifically for your AI.
A reading nook. All right, I like where this is going. So we're not just like cramming more stuff onto our already cluttered desktops.
Exactly. Docker creates this dedicated, self-contained space for Llama 3 to do its thing without messing with everything else on your computer. It's all about a stable and isolated environment,
Makes sense. I'm always up for a more organized digital life. So what's the next step in our quest to unlock these AI superpowers?
Okay, so with a llama and Docker ready to go, we introduce the final piece of the puzzle, which is OpenWebUI. Think of this as like the comfy chair and reading lamp that make your AI reading nook actually inviting.
OpenWebUI. Okay, so this is what takes us from like lines of code I barely understand to actually using the AI, right? Like in a way that makes sense.
You got it. OpenWebUI gives you that user-friendly interface. Think of it kind of like, the ChatGPT website you're probably used to.
Yeah.
It's kind of bridging that gap between all the techie stuff happening in the background and an experience you can actually, work with.
So no more like typing commands into the void, hoping for the best. We can just chat with our AI like a normal person. I'm into it. What's a guide say about getting OpenWebUI set up?
Actually, it's pretty straightforward. Once you install it, usually just another quick command in your terminal, you can access the whole thing right through your web browser. Just like opening a new tab and boom, there's your own personal AI assistant. Ready to go.
All right, see, now this is where my skepticism starts to fade a bit and the excitement kicks in. But earlier we were talking about local LLMs being almost unlimited. And, well, that's a very promising phrase. But I gotta be honest, I'm a little unclear on what that actually means, practically speaking.
Right. So a key part of this whole setup is that with OpenWebUI, you can actually connect it directly to your OpenAI API key.
Okay, hold on. API key. We're getting a little technical again. Can you unpack that a bit?
Sure. So basically your API key is like, imagine it's a digital key card.
Okay.
And that key card grants you access to OpenAI's resources, right?
Yeah.
All the computing power that makes these LLMs so amazing.
So it's how we use ChatGPT right now and all the other cool AI tools they have.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really cool. When you connect that API key to OpenWebUI, it's like taking that same key card, and now you can unlock the door to your own personal AI playground. You're still using OpenAI's resources, but you're not stuck inside their website or their apps.
Okay, so just to be crystal clear, this isn't some like loophole to get free ChatGPT forever or something.
No, not at all. You are still bound by OpenAI's rules, their terms of service, all that, and whatever limits your API key comes with.
So it's more about having choices, like more control over how you're using your existing OpenAI account.
Exactly. Think of it like, you're choosing a different entrance to get into the same amazing library. You're still surrounded by all that knowledge and potential, but you've got more freedom to explore it, interact with it on your terms.
That makes a lot more sense. Okay, but before we get too carried away here, talking about potential cost savings and, all this creative freedom, what about the downsides? I mean, the guide did mention there are a few caveats we should keep in mind.
Right, of course, there's always a trade-off. The big one here is that unlike using ChatGPT in your web browser, where OpenAI's massive servers are doing all the work, running an LLM locally means that your computer is now responsible for everything.
So if my laptop's running on like fumes and a prayer, this might not be the best idea.
It's definitely something to think about. The performance is going to depend on how powerful your computer is, the memory it has, all that. You're probably not going to get that same speed and responsiveness you're used to with the web version, especially if you're doing really complex stuff.
Okay, so maybe not the best use for that old netbook I've got tucked away in a drawer somewhere. But let's say someone does have a reasonably powerful computer, something modern. What are the real-world benefits here? Why go through all this when ChatGPT seems to be working just fine?
That's a great question. The key thing to remember is this isn't about just recreating ChatGPT exactly. This is about a whole other level of control, customization, that kind of thing.
Okay, so example time. When would someone actually choose to do this whole local LLM thing?
So imagine you're a researcher who's working with really sensitive data.
Okay, yeah.
Running an LLM locally gives you complete control over where that data goes and maybe more importantly, where it doesn't go. It stays within your own little secure environment.
So for anyone worried about data privacy, this is like huge.
Huge, for sure. And it goes beyond just privacy. Let's say you're working in a really specialized field, like something super specific, medical research or, patent law.
Right, niche stuff.
Exactly. With a local LLM setup, you could potentially train a custom model on your specific data sets.
Right.
Something that's just not possible with like a regular ChatGPT account.
So you've got your own AI assistant that actually speaks your language, understands your very specific niche needs. That's pretty wild.
Exactly. And the thing is, we're just scratching the surface here. As these LLMs keep getting better, more advanced, the potential uses are only going to grow.
Okay, mind officially blown. But you just touched on something really important, right? Even if someone listening to this, even if they're not about to, run off and install this stuff, just understanding these concepts, that feels important in itself.
I think so, yeah.
It's like a window into the future of AI and what might be possible.
Totally. I agree. This knowledge is powerful because it lets us make informed choices about, the role we want AI to have in our lives, our work, all of that.
Well said. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with a little something to think about. Imagine you could build your own custom AI, right? Like train it on a specific data set that you choose yourself. What would that even look like?
Ooh, that is a good question.
What data set would you use? And what would you be hoping to achieve?
I mean, it could be something, directly related to your work or maybe like a passion project or even just like this burning question you've always had that you want to kind of dig into.
Yeah, what data holds the key to those answers, right?
And I think what's really interesting is so often we think of AI as this distant concept, right? Something that's developed in labs by, these experts. But really, the data sets that we choose, the questions that we ask, the problems that we're trying to solve, that's all contributing to how this whole AI thing evolves.
It's like we're all part of this giant experiment in a way.
Kind of, yeah, we are. And the more we understand these tools, the more power we have to kind of shape where they go from here, what impact they end up having.
That's a powerful thought. So to all our listeners out there, we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
What data set would you use to train like your dream AI? Share your ideas with us. Let us know on social media. Tag us. Because who knows, maybe what seems like a crazy idea today, maybe that's as simple as opening an app in the future.
Totally. I mean, it's such an exciting time to be thinking about this stuff. And like we said, we're really just getting started.
Well said. All right, that is all the time we have for this deep dive. Hopefully you're feeling inspired to explore this whole world of LLMs, local LLMs, and unlock that power of AI, personalized for what you need. Until next time, happy experimenting.